Hello, all, and thank you for joining us for the weekly live Intact demo hosted by Vision 33. For those of you who are familiar with me, my name is Michael Toporek. I am your Sage Intacct sales consultant here at Vision 33 on the East Coast. For those of you who are familiar with Matthew Frampton, he is our certified Sage Intacct implementation consultant here at Vision 33. Agenda for today's session is going to be a quick overview, 5 minutes from me, and then I'm going to leave 40 minutes for Matthew. Before we jump into the demo, I did want to share a little bit about Vision 33 because selecting the right software is important, but the right partner is a difference maker for your business. So I am sure you've done your research on Sage Intacct and know it is a great product. Here at Vision, we do absolutely agree. But Sage Intacct without Vision 33 is just not the same. Vision 33 is the key to unlocking the true value of Intacct. And some things that Vision brings to the table is extensive support, industry experience, long-term partnerships, and we do focus on service excellence. So we have many long-time customers who rely on our partnership to support their business and keep them going day by day. Ultimately, it's our consistency, reliability, and focus on excellent customer experiences to help you get the results that you need. And when we talk about results, we are driven by your outcomes. So our team is focused on understanding your organizational goals and implementing the strong financial core in Sage Intacct. Now, many good partners, they will stop there. At Vision 33, we will go the extra mile with you. This is through our skilled consultants, industry knowledge, and our focus on the right analytics and intelligent automation and integrations. So you can effectively run with your preferred tools in a seamless best of breed environment, and more to come on that phrase in a bit. Here are some of our current customers running Sage Intacct. They come from all over the spectrum: non-for-profit, SaaS and tech, professional services, education, healthcare, franchising, energy, you name it. Some of these logos may stand right out at you. Why they chose Vision 33? We help them realize their vision for the future. Again, most of you have done your initial research on Sage Intacct, but here are a few highlights. Global reach, top company, recognized as a brand and a market leader. Sage Intacct is the ideal solution for growing businesses. Intacct is all around native cloud-based platform. Intacct has built-in solutions tailored specifically for your industry. So view this slide as an introduction on what you're going to be seeing today in the demonstration in detail. And now you're going to be hearing two terms tossed around often. That is best in class and best of breed. What that means is we recognize that we are the best core financial and accounting solution, but there are other software that are the best at what they do. So we provide a seamless integration with those mission critical applications, for example, Salesforce ADP, which is really the opposite approach from other vendors in the marketplace who believe that they have all the best solutions under one umbrella for your organization, which is just likely untrue. So Sage has a full online marketplace filled with these pre-built integrations that you can just simply turn on. And this gives you the capability of automating a lot of the workflows and eliminating any of the error-prone processes that may exist at your organization today. These are some of the key verticals for Sage Intacct globally. We operate in all of these. Our biggest footprint is in the non-for-profit space, where we have approximately 40% of our client base. Our expertise in these verticals really help us to guide our customers down the right path with their implementations, including various implementation types based on your needs. So with our vertical expertise, we are able to offer quick start and rapid implementations with pre-built reports and dashboards for your industry and sector, because we have seen it all. Global reach, local focus. This applies to Sage and Vision 33. We are one of the only global Sage partners operating out of the United States, the UK, and Canada. And for those of you who are interested in the underlying numbers, Sage Intacct is as secure as it gets. You no longer need to worry about backups, downtime, costly upgrades. It just works all the time. It runs on AWS servers and it is encrypted at the highest level. Finally, Saltbox is Vision 33's born in the cloud IPaaS solution that's integration platform as a service. Our Saltbox platform simplifies integrations and workflows with your current applications and business processes. This enables you to do more with Sage Intacct. This is how you can fully leverage the power of the best of breed model with your organization. So if there is ever an integration that you may want established that does not exist on the Sage marketplace, we can build it via Saltbox. And at this point, I'm going to transition over to Matthew, and he's going to walk us through our demonstration today.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. As Michael mentioned, I'm Matthew, and I'm going to walk you through our weekly demo here today. Before we jump into actual functionality, just a couple of notes again on a cloud solution. So if you're working with an on-prem solution at the moment, you have server costs, server maintenance, server storage, server upgrades. All of that will fly out the window immediately. There are no servers with Intacct, obviously, that you need to worry about, as it is a native cloud solution. You don't have to worry about backups of your solution. There's emergency pauses and everything ready, so you can always get a backup if you need it. Another big advantage of a cloud solution is the ability to access your system anywhere, anytime. It is 100% browser based. So as long as you have a device that can access the internet, you have an internet connection, and you remember your credentials, then you can log in and do everything you see me do here today, whether it's at home on a personal laptop, in a Starbucks, at the airport on a tablet while you're waiting for a flight, you name it. Last but not least, would it be the updates to the solution? So again, with on-prem solutions, when an update is issued, oftentimes you have to install that update. You might not always be aware that it's coming, so you're going to log in first thing in the morning and be all ready to do some work. And then you'll get a message that says, hey, you need an update. And then you need to install that update, wait for it. Maybe you have to install it multiple times on different machines. Well, with Intacct, that goes away. Intacct will update automatically 4 times per year. It's a very seamless update. It's going to happen outside your normal business hours, so it's not going to make your solution unavailable. It won't slow it down. It will not break any third-party integrations you may have. It is a very, very seamless update process. If it weren't for the home screen that I'm highlighting right now, you might not even notice the update happened unless you go into some configuration screens and look for new settings. So this screen is really nice because it just reminds you of the updates. But this is a very, very, very brief list of the things that have changed with the most recent update. So if you're curious what else changed, you can click on read the release notes. That will bring you into a nice full table of contents. There's a nice summary video here. I like this video. I watch it with a coffee. I make notes of the functionalities that are changing or being implemented that I think can help my ongoing projects or my past projects, or simply just really interest me. Like, this is cool functionality. How can I put this to use for clients in the future? After I make a note of the updates that interest me, I will come over and drill into the reading material, which can be found under the financials section here. And you see with this update, we've had updates in AP, AR, cash management, dashboards, contracts, fixed assets, employee expenses, the GL. So they're very broad updates, and more times than not, they come with some very useful functionalities. We can also click on read the release calendar here, and that will tell you when the updates are going to happen within this calendar year. These dates are in stone. I've not seen Sage miss one of these dates in the 5 years that I've been doing this. And as we get closer to the 7th of November, probably a week or two before, this calendar will actually go away and they will give you the release calendar for the calendar year of 2026. So then you can plan ahead and you'll know when each update is occurring throughout the next calendar year. With all that out of the way, let's look at actual functionality. So Intacct does a vast amount of things really, really well. From your core accounting modules, such as accounts payable and receivable and cash management and your GL, into like a purchasing workflow or a sales workflow. Those are all core modules available out of the box to everybody. And then it has more powerful modules that you can build on if your business warrants the use of those modules, such as inventory control, fixed asset management, budgeting and planning / forecasting, revenue recognition, prepaid expense amortization, just a list of different modules available. So it does all of those things really, really well. But where it really separates itself from a lot of the competition, in my opinion, comes from the financial reporting capabilities out of the system. Now, it's not just the financial reports that the system can build, it's the ease of building those reports, or the ease of isolating your data, or the ease of finding data that you need to find in order to do some analysis for decision making. Now, the backbone of what makes that so easy in Intacct comes from what Intacct calls dimensions. So if anybody's not familiar with dimensions, I like to explain them in a couple of ways. They can be a little bit hard to grasp onto the idea, but it'll come over time. We'll use the department dimension here in Intacct for my example. A couple of ways I describe these. One would be, think of them as buckets of reporting. So if you have different buckets outside of your GL accounts that you need to be able to report upon, whether it's balance sheet, it's less common, or P&L accounts, which is again much more common than balance sheet. If you want to track revenue and expenses across separate departments, we do that with dimensions rather than having sub accounts on your core GL account number. So rather than having expense type 1-100, expense type 1-200, we'll say it's utilities, expense type 1. So instead of having a GL account for utilities and then having 5, we're going to ignore tuition at the bottom. Instead of having 5 GL accounts for utilities, utilities-100, utilities-200, 300, 400, 500, you would simply have one GL account for utilities. And then when you're coding a transaction, whether it's a general ledger journal entry, an accounts payable bill, an AR invoice, it really doesn't matter. Any transaction that is going to hit your books, you tag a combination of your GL account plus any number of dimensions that you have deemed relevant to that transaction or that GL account, whatever it may be. So out of the box, you get access to the department dimension, you get access to the class dimension, you get access to the entity and location dimension, and you also get the employee dimension, the customer dimension, the vendor dimension. But I don't really talk about those like these other dimensions because you can't really repurpose them, right? You don't have to have departments to use the department dimension. We can rename this to be divisions or segments or product lines or lines of business. It can be repurposed. So the class dimension, the department dimension, the location dimension, we can all repurpose them for our clients' specific needs. But when it comes to customers, vendors, and employees, those kind of are what they are. All companies are going to have those, so we're going to use those for their designated purpose. So this does a lot of things for you. It's going to keep your chart of accounts as slim as possible. Your chart of accounts is not going to blow up and expand because you have all of these different sub accounts. It is going to allow you to allocate data out properly to the correct reporting buckets. It is going to allow you to isolate that data, group that data together, whatever you want to do. It really comes with a vast amount of flexibility to really help you get the reporting that you need. So as an example to what I just said, if I were to come in and say I want to add an AP bill, as I'm adding this AP bill, by the way, Intacct calls AP invoices AP bills. When I worked as an accountant, it's always an AP invoice or an AR invoice. But when I say bill, I mean a vendor invoice. So someone has billed us for something, and we're going to take, if I could find a utility company, I'm not going to bother too much more. We'll just go with Consulting Grid. I put in a bill number. When I come down to code my transaction, let's say this is professional services. Do I have a professional services? Say professional fees for consulting. Maybe we want to allocate these professional fees out to a couple of our departments. Instead of having to choose different GL accounts, we choose the same GL account. We put in the amount that is relevant to each department that we want to allocate this out towards. And we just choose the appropriate department on each line level. So we've got this bill from Consulting Grid. They did so much consulting with our services team. So this amount is for our services team. They did a little bit with our marketing team. So the 750 is for marketing. And they done a little tiny bit with our admin department. So we tag that out. Now that gives me all of the flexibility that I could want. When I run a financial report, I can run it without seeing the department. I don't care about the department when I run this financial report. I just want to see the total in every GL account. It gives me the flexibility to say when I run a financial report or even a GL detail report, like any report in your system, only show me things that hit my services department or only things that hit my marketing department. Or you can say, show me all of my data, but show me each of my individual departments listed out from left to right. So I get all of that stuff combined together. And it's not only one dimension you can tag at the line level. I could also tag a separate project here on each line. I could tag a separate class on each line if I wanted to. How many ever dimensions you are putting to use, you can tag at the line level. So as an example of that, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into a financial report for a moment. Actually burn the top of the roof of my mouth when I was eating my lunch too fast here. And we're going to go ahead and just run this income statement to start. I am going to run it as of 2019. That is where the data in this environment lies. So we're just going to take a look at this P&L. It's a pretty standard P&L. We've got our month ending, we've got our quarter ending, and we've got our year ending. Now, what I've actually done on my revenue lines here is I've told this to break out by my different classes or my different service lines. So I'm seeing my services revenue, and I'm seeing how much of that is relevant to service line 1, how much of that is relevant to service line 2, and how much of that is relevant to service line 3. And I've chosen to do that on the rows in this sense because our service line dimension in this environment is really related just to revenue. It's not really related to our expenses. It would just come up all blank. This is a revenue dimension in this case, so we've chosen just to do it to the revenue. Now, if I wanted to change this report up and take a look at my full year P&L, but I want to see it by an individual department, I would simply come in and grab this report. I would duplicate this report so the report that I already have functioning doesn't get changed. I'll just duplicate that report very quickly. I'll then come into this report and edit it. And what I'm going to tell the system is I'm going to say, you know what, we no longer want to break out our revenue by our classes. We're going to summarize our revenues here, just like our expenses are. And when we get to the columns for this report, I'm not really interested in seeing my current month. I'm not really interested in seeing my current quarter. But what I would like to see is my entire year, and I want to see that broken out by each of my departments so I can see how each one of my departments is operating. And as quickly as that, if I run that exact same report, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have a P&L for the full year broken out by my departments. We've got a little tiny bit of revenue up in our admin department, but not very much. Our services department is driving all of our revenue, which we would most likely expect to see. We'd probably want to see a little bit in selling. And then we've got the expenses related to every single department here. So that's how you can get them all at once and still get a total to the far right. Now, another thing you can do is if you want to isolate the P&Ls by each individual department because you want to send them out to like the department managers, and the marketing department manager shouldn't be able to see the expenses for the IT or the admin department. Well, on this report again, we can add a filter so that when we're running this report, and it looks like it's already there, it is, we can add a filter. And what that will allow me to do is filter when I run this report. So if we just take a look at, say, the IT department has a net loss of 206,000, almost 207,000. When I'm running this report, I can get prompted to choose the department I want to run it for. So I can go ahead and grab it for, did I say IT back there? I did. And when I make that selection and run it for my IT department, I still get my IT department. I don't have to see the revenue line because there's no revenue to show. On this report, it had to show the revenue line because there was revenue for 2 of the 6 departments or 5 departments. But in this case, since this department doesn't have any revenue, it can hide the 0, and we get pretty well the exact same statement, just nice and isolated, but very, very quick and easy to do. Now, these are groups of GL accounts, obviously. So under general and admin, we're going to have copying and printing. Copying and printing can be numerous accounts. It looks like it's just one in this case. So the reports can cascade. We can have whatever categories and subcategories you need. We make all that work. You don't have to worry about that. And of course, the reports are fully drillable. So if I drill into a dollar amount, that will bring me back to a GL detail report. From my GL detail report, if I click on another dollar value, it will bring me back to either the source transaction or the source journal entry. This was actually entered as a journal entry. It did not source from accounts payable or accounts receivable or any other module. It was a manual journal entry. So that is why we are brought back to the manual journal entry itself. And we can do what I just did with any dimension. So we could do that by projects. We could do it by classes. We can do it by customer, vendor, employee, whatever you want. If it's a dimension, we can do what you've just seen. So really, really cool stuff. And out of Intact, you can do the same thing on like a GL detail report. So when we're running a GL detail report, if you want to filter your GL detail report and say, only show me transactions, and I'm going to run this just for revenue and expenses because I don't want to run it for everything here. But you can really just say, first, when I run it, I want to run it for all of my departments, but I want to be able to look at my GL detail report and tell what department or what class or maybe what vendor each line is related to. So the GL detail report in Intact is a little more flexible than others I've seen because you can see that I can add information about my department, about my location, about my class. I've put the class name and the class ID here just to show you that if you didn't want to put the department ID, you would rather just read admin or IT or marketing. We can do so. I've just built it out a little bit. But you can notice that we're getting transactions for all of our different dimensions. All of this is revenue right now. That's why it's all mostly services. But when I get down to my expenses, you'll see we've got expense. This line is for department 500, and this line is for 100, and this one is for 200 and 300, and so on. So you can see that information when you run a GL detail report. But again, if you want to isolate data for a specific department or project or service line, whatever it may be, when you are running that, you simply just say, I'm only interested in seeing my GL details for my admin department. And when we click view, the system will filter it out automatically. And away it goes, just taking a moment to run. And now you can see everything here is for that individual department. So this makes it really, really easy to isolate your data, drill into finer areas of your data that you want to get to, which really helps decision making and analysis. So really, really great stuff. Building off of the financial reporting capabilities comes the dashboard capabilities out of Intact. So you can have as many dashboards in your system as you like. I've got about 6 here right now. You can pick and choose who can see each dashboard on an individual basis. They don't have to be able to see all of them or see none of them. Like you pick and choose each dashboard who can actually see it and who cannot. I'm going to filter this backwards for 2019 since I know 2023 is not going to give me what I want to see here. We'll just give this a moment to refresh. And now we'll just get one example of a dashboard. So at the top of the screen here, we have a graph that someone has named the company performance. This is your P&L, right? You see the key at the bottom of the graph here. The top line is our revenue. The middle line in the teal or the blue is our expenses. And the bottom line is our net income or loss. If it goes below zero, it does not. So that's a nice sign. We then have what we call performance indicators. So you can see we're comparing our services revenue versus the prior month. And we've gone up in services revenue. So the arrow is green. We're comparing our total revenue, a nice jump from the prior month. So again in green. Our labor costs have also gone up compared to the prior month. So I chose in red. Now, this might not really be a bad thing because our revenue has gone up. So maybe we were working a little bit more. So it's all proportionate, of course, but we don't get all of that flexibility here. But you can see that it's in percentage this time instead of dollar value. And we've got a few more here. We've then got some more graphs. So a horizontally stacked bar graph. We've got a vertically stacked bar graph. We've got a pie graph, more performance indicators and more graphs and so on. It keeps going here with this dashboard. Now, these dashboards might look a little bit intimidating to build. They're not. It's just a little learning curve and then you'll be offline. I have very rarely build dashboards for clients after go live. They take them and run with them. So a couple of things about these dashboards that are really nice. They do follow the same rules as financial reports. So if I wanted to filter this dashboard for a particular location or a particular project, or if I wanted to add my department filter up here, I can do so. Those are just what we have enabled on this dashboard. So you can filter it for particular dimensions, just like we've seen with financial reports or the GL detail report. They're a little bit interactive. So if I want to isolate a line on my graph, I can click my key and that will hide or display lines for me. I can do that on any of these graphs. You see that it just takes sections away based off what I click. So that's pretty nice. There is a show data button. So if you want to see the dollar values across a table rather than looking at a graph, you have very quick access to that. And again, the same rule applies for any graph that you're going to see here on my dashboard. But my favorite part about them is since the graphs are derived from financial reporting, they're going to maintain their drill down functionality. So if I hover over a dot, my revenue dot here for August of 2019, I can see it's 341,000. But if I want to see all the details, I can click on my dot. That will open up the revenue section of my P&L for the month of August, and I have all my details and I can continue to drill backwards. It doesn't take me away from my dashboard. Like as I drill back, you'll actually notice that each time it's really popping open a new window for me. So it doesn't take me away from my dashboard. If after I've done my little bit of analysis and drill back, I feel like getting back to my dashboard, I simply have to close a couple of screens and here I am. So if I click on a expense dot, it's going to bring me just to the expense portion of my P&L. And I think everybody can put together here what happens if I click on a net income dot. It will show my full P&L for whatever time period I've clicked on. So really, really great dashboard functionality in here as well. Really, really good stuff. Moving away from the dashboards and financial reports just a little bit, I'm going to talk a moment about Intacct's capability to handle multi-entity environments. So if you're working for a company or group of companies that has multiple different operating entities that have their own separate tax IDs, file their own financial reports, Intacct handles that really, really well. I know with a lot of systems that if you're doing work in one company and you need to do work in another, that requires you to log out of one company and log back into another. Well, in Intacct, that goes away completely. So you see here when I click my top level, I have 8 different operating entities under this login. I know they're named as countries, but they are meant to represent individual operating entities just in the country that they're named after. So I'm viewing my dashboard right now for my company USA One. If I want to see this dashboard for my Canada company, I don't have to log out and log back in. I simply click my drop down and click on Canada, and here I go. It's going to pop open my Canada entity. It's going to bring me right to that dashboard that I was already on. So really simple navigation there and I can continue to work. My USA company does not close. So if I want to do some analysis between the two, I could drag this tab onto my second screen and look at them side by side with ease. You can actually have all of your different entities open at once. So very, very simple. There's no limit to the amount of people that can be in here working. There's no multi-user mode. You don't have to ask people to log out and log back in. I have clients that have 30, 40, 50 people in here working simultaneously. One question that always comes with what I've just shown is, well, what if I have a user that I want to be able to have log into the system, but they only work for one of these companies or two of them or three of them, and I don't want them to ever be able to see the other ones that are listed here. That's really, really simple to do. It's just a user setting when you set up their user. So if I were to put a user restriction on and say, when Matthew logs in, he can only see USA 1 and USA 2. That is exactly what would happen. I would log in at the top level, and when I click this drop down here, I would not see company 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, or E100. I would simply only see 100 and 200, and that would all I would be able to work in. So it's a really simple fix. Now, a couple of things that come with this multi-entity setup. First of all, if you are working in multiple base currencies, Intacct handles that wonderfully. If you need to do consolidated financial reports, Intacct does that beautifully as well. And any intercompany transactions you may have will actually trigger automatically based on settings in the system. So the system will just know what way to put those transactions. So you can see here in my entities, Australia is operating and reporting in Australian dollars, Canada in Canadian dollars, the US companies in USD, South Africa in the South African rand, and then the UK in GBP. They can all process multi-currency transactions with ease. So I can go into my USA company and I can say, I want to put in an accounts payable bill, but this bill came from a Canadian vendor. So they actually billed me in Canadian dollars. You'll notice my exchange rate date is today, and there's already an exchange rate here available. I do not have to import exchange rates into the system. They flow from Oanda, and it is a constant feed. So much to the point that I could change my exchange rate date back here to 2005. The system will go pull out what the exchange rate was at that point in time. So fully historical, fully reliable, well trusted by auditors. And then as I enter my transaction, so if I put in that this was for 500 Canadian dollars, right there on the spot, the system's going to translate that to the equivalent of USD based off this exchange rate. Now, you can bring in your own exchange rates. I have had clients do so. You can override this exchange rate during entry. Like if you want to say, Actually, this had a 0.76 exchange rate on it. When I hit tab, you'll notice my base amount changed from around 363, bumped up to 380. So you do still get that flexibility. And then when I pay this bill, whether I pay it from a Canadian bank account or a US dollar bank account, the system will do its job and also record the realized foreign exchange rate gain or loss based off the difference in the exchange rates between when the bill was entered and when the bill was paid. So that's fantastic. Another thing that I mentioned was the inter-entity transactions. So anytime you do an activity that should result in an inter-entity transaction, maybe we put this bill in the US entity, and since it's a Canadian dollar bill, we pay it out of a bank account owned by our Canadian entity. If that is what happens, all I would have to do is come into pay bills. I can change my selection down here to say I'm going to pay my Canadian bills. I'm not going to use base currency banks to pay them. I'm going to use my Canadian bank. And even if it's not a Canadian dollar bill, I still can pay it from a bank account owned by a different entity if I leave that setting turned on. And of course, if a bill that is for one entity gets paid out of a bank account that is owned by a completely separate entity, one entity would owe the other entity money and the other entity would be owed money from the other company. So they would both have to record an entry. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll post this payment for $500. I'm just going to save that payment. We paid it out of the Canadian bank account. As the system goes ahead and posts this, if I were to go look at the journal entry related to that payment, so we look at this journal entry, the payment amount was $500. So if we go ahead and we look at the journal entry related to that payment, you can see that we have lowered our AP, but we haven't touched our cash balance because we didn't touch our cash. The other side of the entry was due to entity 400 because we paid it out of a bank account that was owned by entity 400. Now, if I were to go back to my top level and look at the journal entry instead of looking at it from an entity level, since I'm at an entity level here, I can only see the journal entry related to this entity. I can't see the other entity's journal entry. But from the top level, if I have the appropriate permissions, which I do, I can look at any journal entry. And since I'm at the top level, I can see both sides of the entry. So if I take a look, you see the posting date for the payment, it is today. And if I take a look at the journal entry, you can see that the other side of the due to and due from has been recorded as well, as has the cash coming off of our books. So the intercompany transactions will trigger automatically for you as well. Last but not least, if you need consolidated financial statements, in Intacct, you can set up as many sets of consolidated books as you need. So in this environment here, looks like I've got 4 sets of books. I think this one I did for another demo. The global set of books is all of our book, all of the entities consolidated into USD. North America is the US and Canadian entities consolidated into USD. And our non-US is everything else consolidated into GBP. Setting up books is really simple. We come in and we give the book a name. We choose what currency we want to consolidate these books into. We can put any currency in the world here. These are just the ones that we have turned on in this environment. We then pop over to our entities to consolidate tab and we just simply pick and choose. Say in this new set of consolidation, I need the financials for these 3 companies to consolidate. I can turn on inter-entity auto elimination, so any elimination entries that should occur during consolidation will actually automatically happen for me. Takes the basic due to and due from accounts, but if we want to add more GL accounts to eliminate, we can do so here. And then you run your consolidations. Once your consolidations are ran, you have all of your consolidated financial statements ready to go pretty much in real time because the consolidations do not take long to run and you can actually set them up to rerun every single night just in case you enter transactions into a period that has already been consolidated. But here you see we have a consolidated P&L for our global set of books. It is in USD and we have listed all of our entities out from left to right. If we scroll down, we've got a consolidated balance sheet, again in USD, and every entity broken out from left to right. And you'll notice that we've put the intercompany accounts here just so you can see that they should be eliminating. There are no intercompany transactions with the holding company, so there's no elimination accounts here, but you can see there's 0 across all the other entities and they're just in the elimination tab. If we scroll down, we'll also see a consolidated P&L for our non-US books. This one's in GBP, and this one again for our North American books in USD, and then a consolidated balance sheet for both of those sets of books as well. So no exporting to Excel, no manually putting in exchange rates, no mapping GL accounts from multiple entities into the same grouping, just a nice automated process and a very strong module. Moving away from global consolidations and multi-currency, the next module I'm going to talk about is going to be our purchasing module. Now, before I jump into the purchasing module, I just want to let you know that the purchasing module is essentially a more powerful accounts payable module. And the reason it's more powerful is because it allows you to create your procurement workflow from start to finish. So you don't, if you just have a standard workflow here, I'm in an inventory company. That's why I have a receipt of shipment. But if you don't have inventory, this step can be grayed out. If you don't want to use purchase requisitions, you don't have to use purchase requisitions. You can just use purchase orders. You are going to get a full 3 or 4-way or 2-way match based on the number of steps in your workflow. There's a convert functionality so that when you move from document to document, you're not rekeying things you've already keyed. And we can put in-system approval policies on whichever stages of the workflow you like. Now, not just stages of the workflow. You see under purchase order, I actually have four separate types of purchase orders. I have a regular purchase order, I have a purchase order for inventory, I have a purchase order for IT transactions, and I have what we have called a committed PO. I can have a different approval policy on all four of these documents. I could have another different approval policy on my purchase requisitions and a different one on my vendor invoices, whatever way we want to go. Now, the approval policies can be routed based off of a number of rules. The first rule being value driven. So you set up your steps of values, like level one is $0 to 25,000 or 50,000 or 75,000, whatever you want it to be. And then level two picks up where level one left off, and then level three picks up where level two left off. And you have as many levels as you need there. Now, that value approval, it can be direct or progressive. And what I mean by that is if you put in a transaction that falls under, say, level three of your setup, through the direct setup, it would skip level one, it would skip level two, and it would go directly to somebody in level three. If we have the progressive setup, it would first go to level one, then go to level two, and then go to a level three approver. We can tell the system to send it directly to a chosen individual. You can say, send them to Matthew, send them to Frank, send them to Alicia, send them wherever. Or we can set up what I call dimensional based approvals. And what I mean by that is certain dimensions in the system, the location dimension, the department dimension, the employee dimension, and the project dimension, they all allow you under each different selection under that list to say that they have a manager. So the manager of my marketing department is Nicole Farley. So if I turn on department manager approvals, when I put in this purchase requisition, I submit it. The system will look up and say, okay, department 400 was tagged on the line level here. The manager of that department is Nicole. So we're going to route this to Nicole for approval. Nicole will get an email if she wants to, turn them off if she wants to as well. And then Nicole can come in and approve that transaction. And then on top of all of that, it is not a one-to-one relationship. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. It's not a one-step approval, I guess, is the best way to put it. It doesn't have to be, it goes to the department manager or it goes to the project manager. There is a then worked into that. So if I turn on purchasing approvals and I say I want to set up a purchasing approval, we have some set up here. I just had them turned off. And I look at the approval policy for purchase order. Right now, it is tagged to go to the project manager of the project that gets entered on the line level. If I wanted to add more steps to this approval policy, if I wanted to say after it goes to the project manager, we want to go to the department manager. And after it goes to the department manager, it's going to go to the employee manager. After it goes to the employee manager, it's going to go through a progressive value approval. And our values we've set up are 0 to 10, 10 to 25, and then 25 plus. And then after that, they're all going to go to a particular user, and that user is going to be Tom. So then we have a 5-step approval policy here on a document, and we could keep going if we needed to. This comes with a very nice audit trail. We can delegate approvals and we can override approvals if we need to. So let's see if we can take a little closer look at some of that. So if I come into my list of purchase requisitions, I see some that say they're converted. I see some that say they're pending, and I see one down here at the bottom that says it is submitted. So if we see converted, what that means is the transaction was entered, it got approved. If it's necessary, it's moved on to the next stage of the workflow. If I click on the word converted, I can get a full history behind that document. So I can see this started as a purchase requisition. The purchase requisition was then converted into a purchase order, and then that purchase order resulted in a vendor invoice. So we have our full three-way match here ready to go. If we see the word pending, that would mean this transaction's been entered into the system and it's ready to move along to the next stage of the workflow. We don't see the convert button, but I know why. But I'll move down to this one. You see how this one says it's pending. If we wanted to convert this into a PO, we don't have to look up the purchase requisition and remember it all or take a screenshot. We can just click convert and then convert this to a purchase order, and that copies everything off my purchase requisition. And here I have my purchase order. I can update anything I want to. Maybe the price changed. Maybe we didn't get the full quantity. I know it's one, but if we got half of what we were told we were getting, we can put that in. So we can handle partial conversions as well. And then we see a state of submitted. And if we click on submitted, that will give us access into, scroll down to submitted. We then get an approval history button. We say, well, this has been submitted since 2019. How come it's not approved yet? We can click on the approval history and we can see that this got sent to Emma for approval, and we would be able to follow up with Emma. Now, if this were a multi-step approval, and I'm probably going to go ahead and turn one on so you get a better idea, because it is just a little bit lame. It just does not demo very well. What do we have on our vendor invoices? Do we have a multi-step in here? We don't. Still project manager. So I'm going to go project manager. I'm going to go department manager, and then I'm going to go, I'll just go user level to Tom, just like I said earlier. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as it is. And then I just want you to see the nice audit trail that you get on a transaction if they're entered. So I'm going to jump in very quickly and put in a vendor invoice. I'm going to just grab a random vendor here. I'm going to put in a document number. I'm going to choose a random item. I'll just choose utilities. I'm going to tag a project. I'm going to tag a department. I'm going to put in an amount, and I'm going to then submit this for approval. Does it say, can it be tagged as billable? Yes, okay. I just need to take away my billable flag right here. We'll submit this for approval. I just want you to see the nice audit trail that we get. So now here's this one in the submitted state. So if I click on submitted again, I can go ahead and click on my approval history, and you can see that this is going to the project manager of the project I tagged, which is Tom. After it goes to Tom, it's going to go to Ryan, and then it's actually going to bump back to Tom. So we probably wouldn't set this up this way. I did not know that Tom was project manager on some projects as well, but you get the idea, I think. You get a really nice audit trail on your approvals. So really good stuff there. There are other functionalities in the purchasing module, such as like variance allowances and advanced processing, that I just a price list that I just don't have time to dive into, but a very, very strong module, really good stuff. The next module that I'll talk about briefly will be our projects module. Now, the projects module has a couple of different flavors available. If you don't do full project costing and billing, but you put off, say, conferences, or if you're a not-for-profit and you need to do grant tracking, you can purchase just the project dimension. And then everything you've seen me do with the department dimension at the beginning of my demo, you just use projects for that, because you need departments for something else, and then you have projects for this. But if you are a full project costing and billing type company, you can set up your projects. Your projects can have subtasks within them. And then we can handle things such as employee time being entered to a project, reimbursable expenses being entered to a project, and automating that billing process. So if we take a look at a project here, we can see we can put in some information. We can organize our projects into different types so that we can track them easily across the different types. It's linked to a customer for billing purposes. We have a project manager. This is used for approval policies like we just seen. And also if we want to build dashboards, if we wanted to build a dashboard for Tom that summarized all of his projects or only showed data related to his projects, having him listed as the project manager makes it very, very easy for us to make a group of projects based off of this field. So then we can make our dashboards and our reports a lot quicker and easier. We go to the additional info tab. We have a couple of sections here that are really meant for grant tracking for not-for-profits, but it's just nice to see them in case you do work for a not-for-profit. If we scroll down, we will see a percentage of completion section. We can trigger billing to a customer or revenue recognition based off of percentages of completion. We scroll down and we see that this billing type for this project is fixed fee and expenses. The other two options that we get here are time and material or just fixed fee. And we have some transaction rules. Don't really have time to dive into specific use cases for these, but essentially what they are is if you want to record some indirect costs or potential billing based off of your employees entering time. So what this is when your employees enter time into the system, it'll actually create an additional journal entry based off calculations that we set up here under what's called a transaction rule. We come to the resources and billing tab. This is where we can assign who is going to be allowed to enter time onto this project. And this is where we set their billable rate for this specific project. So Tom doesn't have to be 220 on every project. He can be 210 on this one, 240 on another, and 150 on another, and free on another. So it's a project by project basis. We then have a nice project summary tab. All of this is pulled into the system automatically. So you can come get a nice summary of your project very, very quickly. You see things like revenue and costs and other expenses and labor, gross profit and net income. Some comparisons between actual billings and projected billing amounts and costs and time. And we can see that we have total billable hours here of 2,472, but none of these hours have been billed. How come would be the question. And then we also have total billable expenses of 104,228, but none of that has been billed. We probably want to get a bill out the door to collect all of this money. So I will show you how quickly we can do that from here. And we have our tasks. So this project did have subtasks, analysis, design, build, and support, just, some further tracking within the system. Now, back to the billing. So we looked at our project summary tab. We say, well, we very obviously need to bill this client. We haven't billed them for 2,500 hours and $104,000 of expenses we incurred. So first of all, how did two of those things happen? So the hours is as simple as the employee comes in under the time module and they enter in my timesheet. I can't click on my timesheets just because of my access, but I can go to staff timesheets. So if I clicked on my timesheets, this would be Matthew Frampton. I wouldn't be able to change it, but as an admin, I can enter time for other people. They come down here and they choose the project and they choose the task of that project, and then they mark whether or not that was billable, and they put in the amount of time they worked, and they can add notes behind the scenes. When it comes to reimbursable expenses, as we're entering in an accounts payable bill, if we are going to be reimbursed for this cost, when we grab an expense account, when we tag it out to a project, if that is a billable project, the billable flag will automatically be selected here. Now we can turn that off if we incur some charges we're not going to bill back, but it turns it on by default because it makes that assumption. And then the system will pick this up as we go forward. Now, if we want to generate a bill, I need to just refresh my memory very quickly. Hopefully on what project I showed that didn't have anything billed out. So I'm just going to jump back here for one moment. A little bit slow again. I think I was on the mobile app platform project. I believe this is what we were looking at. I'm just going to confirm here. Yeah, that's the one. So we want to generate an invoice. We don't have to go back and look up all the detail behind this. We can come to our projects. We can hit generate invoices. I can say that I want to generate an invoice for my mobile app platform project, and then I can go ahead and click on preview. The system's now going to go out and look for any time that we have entered into the system that hasn't been billed. It's going to look for any reimbursable expenses. And for some reason, it has not picked them up. Oh, and I know why it has not picked them up. This is not a time and material project. If you remember from the setup, this was a fixed fee and expenses project. So it has not picked up those transactions for us, which really makes sense to me now. I was wondering how all that time got away without being billed. Doesn't do very well for my demo though. let me go ahead and just do this by project and leave. Well, I can't leave my project blank. Let's see if I can get a little bit lucky here and grab a project that has some things that need to be built out. I'm going to grab, let's try this one. I don't think I'm going to get too lucky here. Well, I did. I got a total amount to build of 15,600. So this has gone out. It's grabbed timesheets that have yet to be billed. These are for Tom and Chelsea. So it picks up their time to be billed back. That makes up the full 15,600. So we don't have any reimbursable expenses here, but we can, pull those in and we can mark them up if need be. So a really strong projects module as well. So that more or less does it for the demo. Before I clue it up, I just want to say the modules that I did show today, even the modules that I was able to show, very, very brief overview of those modules. There's much more functionality available in all of those modules that I showed today. On top of that, there are a vast amount of modules that I just mentioned at the beginning that I don't even have time to dig into. When I demo Intacct normally, I have a script of which modules the client wants to see, and like the shortest the demo is 2 hours. There are just so many different functionalities and options to dive into and see. So I don't want anybody to leave thinking they've seen all of Intacct. We haven't even scratched the surface. We've just glossed over it lightly, like, hey, here we are, just like a little sampler of the system. But if there's anything else that you want to see in more depth, you can go ahead and just let us know, and we'll be glad to do a more focused demo for you. So thank you everybody for coming out to the demo today. Hope you all have a wonderful week and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks. Bye now.